With the Geelong Cats taking out the 2022 AFL Premiership, the season has come to its eventual end for the year. But never fear, you have this video to help recap some of the season that was. In 2022, the view of different teams changed pretty significantly. Some teams triumphed, while others were subpar. So in today's video, I'm going to grade each AFL team's season, talk about how they did in comparison to last year, and how they performed in comparison to expectations. Let me know if I've stuffed anything up, and make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Before we begin, only about 8% of you guys are actually subscribed. The number is going up steadily, but still got to keep going to get to 1k. Sorry for the late upload, had a busy week, and not gonna lie, I've been procrastinating this video for a bit, for some unknown reason. But nevertheless, remember there's a Guernsey giveaway when we hit that 1k goal. All you have to do to enter is subscribe. Like the video if you enjoy, and without further ado, let's get into it. As a Crows fan, there were a lot of ups and downs this year, but overall I'm going to have to go with a B-, as the improvement in our young talent and some of the games we played this year showed promise for the team in a couple of years' time. The Crows were the youngest side in the comp most weeks, and we were still able to string a few decent wins together. Obviously we came 14th, which isn't that different to last year, but the improvement was there in games for the most part. Some games were victims of a flogging, or losing to a team we should probably beat, but that's the Crows for you. Rory Laird and Tex had all Australian type years. Lairdy was robbed in my opinion, and players like Sam Berry, Jake Saligo, Josh Rochelle and Darcy Fogarty have shown some form as of late. A B- it is, feel free to call me biased I guess. Going into the year as many fans' favourites to either win the league or make a deep run in the finals, the Lions had high standards to live up to, and for the most part they were in and out of the top 4 all year, but failed to establish true dominance that some expected. But they still made it further under difficult circumstances than most would have given them credit for. I'm going to give them an A-. They beat Richmond and Melbourne in 2 close finals, and it would have taken an arm and a leg to overcome the Cats in a prelim at home. Overcoming their straight sets curse, the Lions had a relatively decent run when it mattered the most. Lachie Neale was a Brownlow contender, Charlie Cameron was good as usual, and now re-evaluating my choices, I'm going to downgrade them to a B+, due to some inconsistency throughout the home and away season, and big losses to top 8 teams, such as Melbourne. Still a positive year as a whole for Brisbane, and they should be able to retain this form heading into next year. Carlton took the leap this year that many thought, one that nearly saw them in the finals, but of course it all fell apart towards the end of the year. We still have to acknowledge the improvement, moving from 13th last year to 9th, but it's hard to overlook them choking in the final couple of games this season. Patrick Cripps won the Brownlow, Charlie Curnow won the Coleman medal, and Sam Walsh was in All-Australian type form. But they couldn't get it done when it mattered the most, and that hinders their grade to a B+. I feel bad for Blues fans, but they should be back in good form next year, and hopefully they won't be playing Melbourne or Collingwood too many times. Their season didn't end well, but it still provided some good wins and some promising moments. In comparison to predictions heading into the season, which were mostly negative, having them placing near the bottom of the ladder, the Pies exceeded expectations and had a promising and exciting run, with depth and breakthroughs from the younger stars. And I feel for that reason I have to give them an A+. Jack Crisp, the Dacos brothers and Jack Ginnivan really shone through, and allowed them to jump from 17th last year to 4th this year, with a trip to the prelim final. Veterans such as Steele, Sidebottom and Pendles also seemed to slow down time in crucial moments this year. Obviously they won a number of close games and were shown to be the clutchest team in the comp. They should be perennial contenders for years to come. Collingwood the highest honours, A+. A pretty big step back was taken by the Bombers this season, and compared to expectations they flopped pretty significantly, and the after effects of this are now being seen through trouble within major members of the club. The Bombers get a D- from me, one of the lowest grades I'll give. Focusing on just their season, they dropped from a finals berth to one of the worst teams in the comp, landing in at 15th. Their big time players just didn't seem sharp enough, apart from Peter Wright, either due to injury or just general poor play. I thought Ben Rutten should stick around another year just to see how things shape up for the squad, but the future of the Bombers right now is quite unsure under the new coach, Brad Scott. Flag mantle was real for the majority of the year, and for that reason I have to give the Dockers a more than solid A for their efforts. Players such as Rory Lobb, Michael Frederick and Hayden Young improved quite a bit, and obviously Andy Brayshaw was a Brownlow favourite. They were the first team to beat Melbourne this year in a huge Indigenous round clash, and started the year in impeccable form. They also managed to come back and knock off the Doggies in an elimination final in a massive effort. The Dockers players all seem to be improving, and if some of them don't leave in the trade period, which may end up happening, fans should see them in the finals next year easily. The premiers of the league, any rating lower than an A+ for the retirement home Geelong Cats would be a disservice to their playing ability this season. Having not lost a game since round 9, the Cats were just unstoppable for the most part, dismantling even the most dangerous opponents for round upon rounds. Some viewed them as pretenders up until the finals, but real ones know the potency of the team. The side is just star-studded really, Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins, and Tom Stewart had outstanding years, while players like Tyson Stengel broke out of their shell, and players like Joel Selwood capped off an amazing and record-breaking career. They got past the Hot Pies in the qualifying final and dismantled both the Lions and the Swans to claim their first premiership since 2011. Geelong get an A+ as the champs of the league. It was about time the Suns hit their stride and unlocked the potential of some of their younger guns, and this season it finally happened. A beautiful sight for all AFL fans, them receiving a B+. Led by Brownlow favourite Touk Miller, Gold Coast had one of the better seasons in their existence, helped by unlocking talent in players such as Noah Anderson, Matt Rowell and Isaac Rankin. What's not to love about the Suns finally getting some respect within the league? And I hope they make a push for finals next season. A few decent sized losses kept them from getting an A level grade, and they never seemed on the level of the other teams in and around the finals, but the Suns are on the up and are one of the more exciting teams to watch in the comp. Going from a final spot last season to 16th place in 2022, the Giants' age has started to show, and it wasn't pretty for the most part. Their leaders who have been decent in seasons past, such as Whitfield and Kelly, were okay, but just didn't have the impact they normally have in helping the team to win games. I'm going to give them a D- grade. The Giants were inconsistent, and it obviously doesn't help when you have a coach leave midway through the year, but still, I expected more. They need to get rid of some of their higher paid players and invest in some younger talent in my opinion. It must hurt not getting free picks from the AFL anymore. Just joking, but yeah. The Giants painfully underperformed, and they get a D-, joining Essendon near the bottom of the barrel. The Hawks played exactly how I thought they would this season, and for that reason I'm giving them a stock standard C+. Young players such as CJ, Dylan Moore and Mitch Lewis helped to keep the Hawks out of the bottom couple teams, and under a new coach, this was a decent effort. James Sicily had an All-Australian type year despite being robbed of that award, and they did get some big wins, one example being against Geelong on Easter weekend. As mid-table as the team could be, I don't really have too much to say about the Hawks. They play as expected, and that's why they get a C+ grading. Melbourne gets a B- from me, and going into the year, the Demons were definitely my premiership favourites. With a comprehensive win over the Doggies the year before, and with stars such as famous TikToker Christian Petrarca, Max Gawn and Clayton Oliver, it was almost impossible to see them not making it to the big game again. But of course, they didn't. They had a solid home and away season, finishing second on the ladder, only one spot down from last year's first. But the occasion and magic just wasn't there in comparison to last year, and in finals they went out in straight sets, something I think very few fans saw coming. It's hard to win 2 premierships in a row, so they do get a pass and were competitive to the highest extent all year. The D's get a B-, but just didn't live up to what I thought they were possible of this year. Look, no one really expected a lot out of North this year, but boy, did they still underperform in a big way, showcasing terrible performances along with a sacking of a coach and a fresh number 1 pick that wants out. The Wooden Spooners receive a D+, and the only reason that isn't lower is due to my low expectations of the club at this point, and just how young most of their roster is. With time to develop and possibly under Alistair Clarkson, depending on this investigation, the club could be contending for finals in 5 years or so time. Players like LDU, Zerha, Nick Larkey and Tom Powell bright spots for the team, but even on their best days, they couldn't contend with most of the other teams in the competition, and had to have a number of things go their way to get those 2 wins in 2022. From a prelim final appearance and second place on the ladder last year, to starting off the year with 5 straight losses and missing the finals by a considerable amount, has been enjoyable to watch as a Crows fan, not gonna lie. But it was interesting to see what caused them go from a premiership contender to missing finals almost instantly. Port landed D- here. Last year's Brownlow medalist Ollie Wines didn't perform to a high standard, as well as other star players at the club. They suffer from high expectations, and I thought this year was the opportunity to see Ken Hinckley finally leave the club, but I guess management wanted to run it round again. Port had a disappointing year compared to the few previous, and I'm not too sure what's in store for their future. They've got some good younger players, so hopefully they can string it together. Bouncing back from a lackluster 2021 campaign, the Tigers seemed revitalised and challenged top sides for most of the year. The only thing that holds them back from a grade in the A-band was a soul-crushing loss to Brisbane in the elimination final. They get a B+ from me. All their players performed at a high enough level. The Tigers were never viewed up there as top 4 contenders, but they always seemed to win when it mattered most, showing the premiership DNA embedded within the club. They finished the year well despite the finals loss and can make anything happen in the next season. A very unpredictable side with a high ceiling on what they can achieve. A meh season from the Saints gets a meh grade in my books. The Saints get a straight C and just failed to really improve in any way from last year. In terms of player development and team success, Max King, Jack Steele and Jack Sinclair had good years, but the team is kind of stuck in a limbo and I don't know how they take the next step. They also had chances to capitalise and make the finals, but just couldn't get the job done. The year began with great success, but they fell off. just look devoid of any purpose in their play. Their list isn't the strongest compared to other top level teams, so I think it's going to be hard for them to make finals like they should aspire to. I don't have high hopes of St Kilda heading into next season, but we'll see how that goes. Aside from the grand final performance that we don't mention for the sake of Swans fans, Sydney had an amazing year, capitalising on developing talent within their team and winning some big games in the finals. Chad Warner, Isaac Heaney and James Rowbottom had great years, and the Sydney backline is one of the best in the comp. Under John Longmire, this team was able to run any other unit off their feet with open play through the corridor and exciting finishes. I feel the Swans definitely outperformed people's expectations of them, with them being able to knock off both Melbourne and Collingwood in the finals. Remember, just a few seasons ago, Sydney were near the bottom of the ladder and quote-unquote rebuilding, so it's pretty impressive what they have accomplished. They jumped from 6th last year to 3rd, and a whole grand final appearance. Sydney deserve an A for their season as a whole. What a catastrophic failure this year was for the West Coast Eagles, and there's no real way of putting it lightly. With undeniable talent, improved players on their roster, with a combination of COVID outs, injuries and just outright terrible play, they fell from a finals contending team to one which only won 2 games in the year. And that's why they get an E+ grade. Poor Eagles fans. You would think that with players like Jack Darling, Tim Kelly, Andrew Gaff, Tom Barras, Shannon Hearn and Elliot Yeo, the West Coast is closer to finals team talent, rather than the bottom of the league. But sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. And yes, injuries and COVID really stuffed up their season, but they still could have strung together a couple more wins to meet expectations. The Eagles received my worst grade of all, an E+. Coming off a grand final appearance in 2021, the Doggies were viewed as premiership contenders coming into the season, but they never really seemed to emphasise and continue that form, earning themselves a C+. They were up and down all season and just managed to sneak into the finals before choking a big lead in the elimination final to the Dockers. Young talent such as Waitman, Norton and Ugle-Hagan weren't capitalised on, and the Bont as well as Jack McRae just didn't play as well as they previously have. They just seemed inconsistent at times and weren't really all there. I feel like I said this about most teams, but I feel like they'll bounce back. Most teams get a grand final hangover, so it's all part of the plan for the Doggies. With that being said, C+. Thank you guys so much for watching, hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of my gradings down below in the comments, or just let me know what you thought of the video. Remember, I rated these teams in comparison to their expectations and what they accomplished last year, before you start typing furiously. The support recently has been insane, so I'm going to try and keep uploading consistently, and don't forget, there's a Guernsey giveaway and possible phase reveal at 1,000 subs, so comment any video ideas down below and I'll make sure to check them out. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for future Sportsfield content. Have a good one, and cheers.